Recently, Mr. Alex Tech posted a video that showed how to make a snapshot effect using a viewfinder overlay. It was a simple, genius idea, and I took it and I've had a play with it. So these are a couple of examples of what I've done. I've basically taken the static viewfinder overlay, animated it, and added a focusing prism. So before we get in to the tutorial, can I suggest you go to Alex's video, have a watch of it, and grab the assets that he has linked in his description. Assuming I know how to work YouTube, there should be a link appear in the info bar at the top of the screen at some point. See you in a minute. Okay, let's get started. So the first thing we need to do is grab something to make a photo of. So pick your bit of video and drag it into your timeline. You now need to find the point that you want your photograph to be. This can be anywhere you want, but bear in mind that you need at least 4 seconds before the photo to fit the animation in. So I've chosen this point. I'm going to cut the clip here with Command B and then discard the end of the video because we don't need it anymore. We'll now go back 1 frame and zoom in so that we can see what we're doing. I just use Option and the scroll wheel to zoom in and out of the timeline. Once you can see what you're doing, you're going to make another cut with Command B. And you now have a single frame left. Right click this frame, choose Change Clip Speed and check the freeze frame box. You can now stretch this 1 frame out as long as you want. I elected for 5 seconds, it's arbitrary. So now you can see your video and then into your still picture. If you want, you can take this still into the color page and recolor it. Next we're going to add an adjustment clip, so you find your adjustment clip in your effects library, effects and adjustment clip. Right click and change it clip duration and make it 4 seconds. Now we need to line the end of the adjustment clip with the end of the video clip and take the adjustment clip into Fusion. First thing we're going to do is set up the overlay. So we'll drag the overlay from the media pool into our node graph. Next you'll grab the output from the overlay and merge it onto the output from the media in node. This automatically generates the merge. As you see, the overlay is too big. It's 4K overlay and I'm working on a 1920 timeline. So what I'm going to do is pop a scale node in, so shift space to get your tool select, search scale and drop it in, and then drop the scale to half and everything fits. The merge we've just created is probably the most important node for this project. Everything will be referenced to this node, so we need to know which node it is. So I'm going to rename it, press F2 to bring up the rename screen, and I'm just going to call it overlay position. Later on, as we start to animate, all animations will refer back to this node. Next we're going to add the flash effect. In Alex's video he used a transition on the overlay clip. Unfortunately you can't use transition on an adjustment clip, so we're going to have to build the flash into our Fusion comp. To do that I'm going to bring a merge node. I'm going to pipe the output of the overlay position node into the background of the merge node and reattach it to the media out. And I'm going to take a background node and attach it to the foreground of the merge node, i.e. the green triangle. With the background selected, I'm going to come to the last frame of the clip. I'm going to keyframe the colours and I'm going to turn the background white. Now come back 2 frames, set another keyframe, back 1 frame and turn the background black and the opacity to 0. This gives us a simple flash effect. So now we've got the flash sorted, we're going to turn to animating the overlay. For this we're going to use the overlay position node. So first we're going to bring the playhead back to where we want the animation to start. Keyframe the center and the angle. Next we're going to zoom out a little bit so we can see what we're doing. We're going to set the angle to where we want it to start. And we're going to drag the overlay off screen. Now we'll come forward about a second, or 24 frames in this case. And we're simply going to reset the center back to 0.5.5. And the angle back to 0. Now you can see if we play it through, you've got your viewfinder animating as though you're lifting the camera up. Way back in the mists of time, I had a Praktica camera which was fully manual and did bugger all for you. One of the features was, as you look through the viewfinder, everything apart from the focus ring in the middle had a significant graining, and I wanted to emulate that here. So to do that I elected to use a TV node. So shift space and search TV and drop the TV node in after the media in. When we first put it in, you see all these lines, we don't want them, so turn them off. And we go into the second tab. Here we've got our grain type effect. If we compare the original footage to our TV footage, you can see there's a degree of graining to it. I wanted to sort of exaggerate that, so I cranked the size of the grain up to 1. Now the grain looks good, but we need to clear the middle. So for this we're going to use a couple of masks, because when we move the overlay we want whatever's outside the overlay to be clear. So we need to mask it. So for that I'm going to use a rectangle, which I will change the size of the screen and pipe into the mask input of the TV, the blue triangle. I will also use an ellipse for the circle. If you drag and just hold your pointer over the line, it will join automatically. If you don't do that, just shift and drag it in and it will connect. We change the size of the ellipse to match the focus ring. And we set the paint mode to subtract, and there you can see that it's cleared that middle bit. So we have our grain set up, now we just need to start animating it. Now I apologise at this point because I already had the overlay position node pinned so it was always visible. That's what we need it to be, but I'll go through and just show you how we got there. Just uncheck it, click around like a pillock and find a different node. Right, so open your overlay position node, click on the pin button. This means that all these controls remain visible even if you click on another node. So if we now click on our mask for our grain, you can see the rectangle one at the top and our overlay position at the bottom. So now we need to tie the center of our mask with the center of our overlay position node. So we're going to use an expression. So right click on the center, pick expression, and this plus sign appears. Click and hold the plus sign and drag it to the center of your overlay position node, and both values will now be tied together. We'll do the same for the angle. So right click expression and drag and pick the angle value from your overlay position. What you will now have is the mask moving with the overlay. So as you can see outside, the overlay is now clear because the mask is being moved out of the way. However, what you notice is that the circle that we made earlier hasn't moved. So we need to go through the same process with the ellipse. So tying the center and the center to the overlay position. So right click your center, expression, and drag and pick the center from your overlay position. We don't need to worry about the angle, it's a circle, so it doesn't matter. Now, as you move around, both the clear circle and the grained background will move. Okay, so now we come to possibly the most complex part of the animation, is the focus prism. I'm going to start off by bringing two transform nodes into our node tree. Each of these will take its input from the output of the TV node. Just by way of keeping my node tree tidy, I used a pipe router node. If you hold the option key and click on your pipe, you get this little grey box with its own output, and you can use the output from this to both your transform nodes. We're now going to attach the output of each transform node to the foreground of a merge node. Again, you've got two of these, and we're going to bring in two background nodes which we will set alpha to 0 so they're transparent, and we're going to attach those to the background of each merge node. So there's the first one, and we're going to do the same on the bottom merge node. So transparent background and attached to the yellow background arrow of your merge node. Now we're going to need to build the focus prism in the center focus ring of the viewfinder. To do that, we're going to mask each of these merges. First, we're going to put an ellipse which will shrink to the size of your focus ring. Now what we need is two half circles, not a whole circle. So we're going to take this rectangle, pipe it into the ellipse, and we're going to shrink it down so that you end up with a square that is the size of your focus ring. We're now going to rotate this square to 45 degrees. and we're going to move it so it sits over half of the circle. You can use the sort of corners of your square and your centre as sort of rough reference points. I'm going to change the merge on the ellipse node to minimum, and that way you get a half circle. Now what we're going to do is copy and paste the ellipse and the rectangle group. So Command C, Command V to copy and paste, and we're going to attach this group to the other merge node. Now, all the hard work's done here. All we need to do is to move the square so that we reveal the other half of the circle. So highlight your rectangle and simply drag it to the opposite side of your view ring. Again, using your centre marker and the two corners of the square as sort of a gauge to hit in the right position. Once we've done that, we're going to merge the two halves together by dragging the output of one onto the output of the other, and we end up with a full circle. What we're going to do now is make each half of the circle slide in opposite directions to give the impression that as the picture comes into focus, the two halves slide together. I'm just tweaking the square here. It's not vitally important, to be honest, because the mask goes beyond the black circle, so you don't see the edge of it. So to animate the two half circles, we're going to use the respective transform nodes. So if you click on your first transform node and move your playhead to where you want the animation to start from, we're going to keyframe, except I didn't because I'm a pudding, so just bear with me. I went to keyframe the second keyframe here, and obviously I hadn't keyframed the first one, so that kind of didn't work. So go back to your first, start your animation, keyframe, and then go to the end of your animation. Bring those back to the center, and that automatically adds your next keyframe. So if you notice, what I did was I dragged the center just up to the sort of top right hand edge of the semicircle, and that's all the movement I wanted. So as it plays through, it slides back in. So come back to the start of your animation again, and this time we're going to view the bottom merge. We're going to animate the bottom transform node. So okay, this time I used the merge instead of the transform. I'm not quite sure why I did that, but it works anyway. What you could have done was go to the second transform node and performed exactly the same operation as I did on the merge node. Either works. What you now have as you play your animation through is the two halves sliding together. This sort of replicates what you would see in an old-fashioned sort of camera with a focus prism. The next thing we want to do is simulate something coming into focus. So I've basically added a blur onto each merge node, and I'm going to animate the blur in time with the sliding semicircles. So at the start of your animation, things are out of focus, and then at the end of your animation, they come into focus. So again, back to the start of your animation, keyframe your blur level. Come to the end of the animation and drop your blur level to 0. So now as we play the animation through, you get blurred to focused. Okay, so we're on the home straight. So we're going to take the output of our merge node and merge it back into the TV node, which produces its own merge. Now if you look in the right hand viewer, you can see the effect of the focus prism in the whole image. So our animation running through shows an immediate problem in that our focus ring is still in the middle of the picture. So we need to think about animating that. So the way we're going to do that is using our friend, the overlay position node. Select it and repin it if it's not still pinned. Select the merge node that we've just created, and using an expression, we're going to tie the center and the angle into the overlay position node as we did earlier. If all's gone well, what you should now have is your completed animation. So now we can play through and view our completed animation. So now we can come back into the edit tab and review it. And to be honest, it's a bit rubbish in the edit tab because I don't know how to cache an adjustment clip, so it's very jumpy. We'll sort the playback out in a minute. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to rename the adjustment clip. I'll call it snapshot for want of a better name. I'll then move the adjustment clip into the power bin. What that means is that you can then use this Fusion comp in any future project where you want to do this effect, i.e. make a snapshot out of a piece of video. It saves going through the whole process of making the effect over and over. You've already got it to hand. So the last piece of the project is to add our camera click sound, which again was one of the assets that you could have got from Alex's description. I basically put my playhead at the join, go back a couple of frames and put the click sound up against it, so that as the flash appears, the sound plays. Now, on the subject of playback, the way I got around it was I selected the adjustment clip and the two video clips and made them into a compound clip. I then cached this, and once it's cached, as you can see, it plays smoothly and you can get a real sense of what's happening. So I'll leave you with the examples that I showed at the beginning. Hope you found it useful, entertaining or enjoyable, or maybe all three. Thank you for sticking with it. I'd also like to say thank you to Alex for letting me take his idea and basically expand on it. And I will maybe see you again if I can come up with another idea for a tutorial. Cheers, bye.